opportunity for parents of middle and high school kids to come, young people to come together and have parent conversations about these topics. And the last week of the month is an opportunity for BIPOC parents to come together and have parent conversations about these topics. And as I mentioned, we are the bryt National Family Engagement Team. bryt is a national movement that's a project of the Brookline Center, and we are here to work together in so many different ways to support schools and young people and families to when young people are experiencing disruption at school for different reasons. So we really look at the intersection of supporting young people in mental health with schools, education, and we love doing these events and talking to parents about all of the topics that are important to parents. And so we survey parents every year and we hear what are the topics that parents would be most interested in learning about and talking about. And the topics that rose to the top are the topics that we hold these parent conversations around and these learning series. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to, or first I want to introduce my fantastic team. So we've got Julie up here, we've got Victor and Lakeisha, and we are your family engagement team. So we hope you join us at the parent conversations, and you'll see any number of us at those. We have East Coast friendly and West Coast friendly times, and at the end of the night, you'll get the flyers for those dropped into the chat in the YouTube live. So I think that's it. I'm so excited about tonight's event because tonight's event is about learning from young people. It's really the opportunity to get the gift of wisdom from young people about all the kinds of things that that we as parents benefit from hearing about. It's the night is going to start with a little fishbowl, and our family engagement team is going to go off camera, and we're going to have the honor of listening to our family engagement guests tonight, our young people who are going to share their wisdom. So we really do consider that a gift, and we're thankful for that. And then we'll come back on camera and just have a conversation with folks around all of the wisdom that young people have for us around parenting and navigating these roads. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Julie. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to start with the bios, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how we are going to run this fishbowl activity. Our first guest is Janaea, and Janaea lives in Massachusetts and loves reading for fun, and in the future hopes to continue their education. We also have Nico, who is a junior at Amherst Regional High School. And then finally, our facilitator, Kendall, is a junior at Northampton High School, and Kendall enjoys fashion, activism, and music. So welcome all three of you. Thank you for being here. So tonight we are doing what is called a fishbowl, and Kendall is going to be our our fishbowl facilitator, and we'll be asking questions of each of the members, the other members in the group, and we'll also be taking part in the conversation as well. And so Kendall will be kind of leading the show. So I'm going to pass this on to you, Kendall. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been trying to think of a way to start this off, but I was just thinking about my own personal interests because I was asked to send a bio, and I sort of realized how I connect with like a lot of my friends via interests, and I kind of thought about how I think I'd be closer to my parents if I shared like my interests with them. So I was just gonna ask you guys, like, do you wish that your parents connected more with you through bonding, like through your interest, trying to get to know more about whatever you're interested in, just trying to, I don't know, become closer through things that you enjoy? If you want me to go first, I will, but if you guys want to go, I'm open to that.
I can say something about that. I would say I do share a couple interests with my parents. Like my dad, for example, we definitely bond over basketball like a lot. So that's really good. But there's definitely a lot of things that I'm interested in that my parents aren't. And it does feel really good when they do sort of try and learn about it. When they listen to me talk about it, it definitely makes us feel closer.
And what about you, Janaya?
Yeah, I definitely love talking. So I love when my parents have an interest that they can share with me, because then I have a reason to just keep talking about it, and I love being able to just connect with them on a deeper level.
Yeah, I know me personally, like me and my dad connect a lot over like different TV shows and like film and stuff like that. And, I really appreciate that like he supports my creativity and stuff. But the second question I have was like, I don't mean to get like too negative because I know we all love our parents and stuff like that. But like what's one thing you wish like your parents didn't do? Like obviously you can't always say like I wish you didn't do this, but like, if their feelings weren't hurt, what's one thing that you would, say?
I definitely have something for this. Like when I was in like middle school around, they used to go through my phone, and I didn't like that at all because it made me feel like it didn't create a sense of like trust, and it felt like they were overstepping instead of being able to talk to me. So that's definitely one thing I wish they didn't do. I wish they never went through my phone.
Yeah, I feel that. I think I would ha tell my mom to just like have patience. I know that like parents do a lot of things in the heat of the moment, but I just feel like if they would just take a step back and just breathe, then the outcome would be way better. Also, I'm sorry with my voice. It's going away.
No, it's okay. It's been a long day for all of us. But I think one thing for me personally, like like when I'll be upset, like my mom will be upset that I'm upset. Like I'll be crying and she'll be like upset that I'm not telling her why I'm crying. But that kind of makes me upset because like I don't always want to talk about it and she'll be upset that I don't want to talk about it. So it's like the most counterproductive way to like solve like a conflict. Like I don't know. She does work on stuff like that because I know she is watching this live. I love you. But yeah, I do love my mom, but I think that's one thing that I wish she didn't do a lot. Going off of what you said about privacy, Nico, um I think parents' jobs obviously is to like protect us, but there's a very fine line between being intrusive and like being a parent. So where do you think that line should be drawn? How do I phrase this? Like where is the line between parenting and being invasive and being inappropriate towards your child's boundaries?
I mean, I think like the parents have to wait for the kid to come to them more. And of course, it can be really hard for kids, so they can sort of push and pry a little, but it's like too far when they're like, say they have a journal or like their phone, for example. Also, like just going through that stuff, it's too far. Like it needs to be face to face. Like it shouldn't be going behind their back, and the parent should never go behind the kid's back. I think that's where the line is drawn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think since I got a phone like a lot later, I didn't really have to worry about privacy until I was a lot older. But I think especially being in like a house of color where like I don't have a lock on my door and like, the expectation is that you tell me everything. I think that's like kind of made a wedge between me and my parents because it's like you're trying to find out stuff rather than making a safe space for me to know things. You're expecting for there to be something I'm not telling you, but maybe I just don't have to tell you anything. And so that kind of makes like a weird environment for kids to want to open up with their parents. But hi, Aster. We were waiting. How are you?
Hey, sorry I'm late.
No, it's okay. No,
The
it's
link
okay.
wasn't working.
That's okay.
Aster, good to see you. Julie, do you want to do a quick intro of Aster and then we'll hop back in and Kendall. Awesome.
Whoops, just a second. I got to do my video here. Welcome, Aster. Glad you're here. We have our fourth guest, Aster, who is 14 years old. And when not in school, he likes to listen to music and be with his lovable and dumb mutt, Georgia. And he hopes that you enjoy our presentation tonight. I'm glad you're here, Aster.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Wait, does anyone want to say anything about the question? Because I have a billion questions to ask, and I just want to ask all of them. But if does anyone else want to say anything? No? Okay. I was just thinking about how like my personal experience, like coming out to my parents and being very open about like my gender identity and my in like my sexuality, um, and how it's like not necessarily like simple to like understand, I guess, for older people. I mean, for people just in general nowadays, actually. For people just in general. And, you know, I think it can be, I'm blessed to have parents we're on the same side of the political spectrum. But I was just wondering if you guys, if you have to like deal with parents that aren't, I guess, and what that's like and I can imagine how hard that can be and just like what's that, what's that like? If anyone wants to go.
I
Or I
mean,
Okay, no,
I
you can
can kind of go. It's like my parents like are on the same like political side in a sense, but like they don't always agree like within the same things that I am. Like coming out as like trans in a sense, and then also like within like not conforming to like the political like I don't know the binary spectrum of sexuality. I
Yeah.
don't know how you would put it, but like I don't know, it's just kind of hard because like it's not like we don't get along like necessarily, but it's more like specific topics in general are just like hard to talk about in a sense. And like they kind of get like ignored ish.
Yeah. I know my parents, they like don't like politics. Like they're like they get upset when I talk about politics, but I feel like that's such a fundamental part of like human nature. Like politics are like inherently social. Like nothing is more human than politics, I feel like it's such like a human issue. And I think it's important that well, for at least for me, that I'm always talking about like what's on my mind and that I don't feel like I'm the weird one for like being interested in things that like inherently affect me. I know, Nika, you wanted to say something. Your mic goes off.
For me, I would say like once or twice a month, me and my parents will kind of randomly engage in like a political conversation, and it'll just go on for like 2 hours. And I just want to say I think that's super important. Like parents, you have to like talk to your kids. Like if your kid brings something up about politics, right? Definitely continue that conversation and talk about it. And just not even just politics, but just anything about like our like society and like gender and sexuality and anything like that. Like those conversations, even though they don't happen often, they can go on and be really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else to add? I'm excited to ask my next question. I don't know if you can tell. Okay. So my next question is kind of like based around relationships. For so long, I feel like your parents are like the most important part of, your life as they should be. But, when, we're obviously teenagers, when you get a significant other, that person can sort of like take up a lot of, your time. And I know for me personally, I'm only allowed to see my boyfriend, 2 times a week, which I kind of find frustrating because it's like we don't go to the same school, so like we have time for like our other friends, but it's like I, f- I don't know, it's just so frustrating. So, I just wanted to talk about like if you have any like restrictions on dating, if you have anything, that your parents have issues with around dating.
Well, I don't really have issues with dating. It's more about like when me and my ex broke up, it was like really hard, like specifically like what they did to me that kind of caused like the breakup in a sense. And it was kind of like hard like to say, "Oh, my ex did blank 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 blank," and then not to get like I don't know, not like nervous in a sense, but like worried about me in a sense.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
the
was
same
just
exact. Yeah. Yeah, that same thing happened to me when I went through like my last breakup and it was like really, 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 really bad. I guess it was kind of, I don't know, it was almost embarrassing. I I guess because it's like I don't know now everyone knows that your relationship didn't work and I don't know. It can obviously be very, very difficult, but um my next question is like how would you have preferred your parents like supported you? And I'm sorry these questions are like a little bit too individual. I don't know if everyone in here has been in a relationship, so I'm sorry about that. Do you want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. Um, well, I wish my parents hadn't spent so much time like hating on the person and actually spending time worrying about me and what I was going through. And also like I feel like I'm the type of person that will keep going back until like it just doesn't work anymore. And that's my process as a young person who had never been in love before, who never had any romantic experiences. My mom was like, "Yeah, why are you doing this?" And I was like, because apparently I need to learn this way. Like that's the way I have to learn. So I guess I wish my parent, like my mom specifically, wasn't like so judgmental of like that aspect
Yeah.
of my life, I guess. Yeah.
For me, I kind of wish that it was like different in a sense because like my parents were like really invested in learning about my like boyfriend and it's like so no. Because it's like
Privacy that goes back to privacy. We were just talking about that. Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
but it's just like it's my personal thing. Like if I want to let you know about my love life, I'll let you know about my love life. Same goes really with like any aspect of life. But like if I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it. Like
Yeah.
don't keep pressing on that subject, please.
Yeah. I guess that goes back to like, I actually did want to talk about like hard subjects. Like I know a lot of kids have like a lot of trouble like when they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, "Oh, are you sexually active? Have you taken like drugs before?" Like questions that you need to answer when you get your physical. And it might not seem like a big deal to some parents, but I think one thing I would say to a lot of parents is to not make your kid feel weird. And if you can't really handle that answer, I feel like maybe also just say that. But I also feel like you should be creating like an open environment with your children to be talking about these certain. Obviously, you don't want them to be doing illicit substances, obviously. But, certain people are certain people and, conversation, that's how you get to common ground, I feel like. Even if you both don't agree on certain things, I would really just encourage conversation, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I find it pretty difficult to talk to my parents about those type of things, right? But it's like again, it's so important. Like if I do start to talk about those type of things, how they take it, because they're not gonna get many chances, right? So as parents, we have
Yeah.
to like the best of that, and they have to like be fully like open and stuff. Otherwise, it'll be hard for the kid to open up again because if when a kid is vulnerable, then they get like judged or anything in that moment, they're not gonna be vulnerable again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then the parent also might be like, "Don't do drugs. You'll die." Something like that. And that'll just like also make the kid not want to talk about that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly. They can't be judgmental in those moments.
Yeah. If I don't want to like ask you guys if like you have had those conversations with your parents, but let's say if you did, like, would you actually feel comfortable being like honest with them?
I would say in this moment, not completely, no. I don't know if I could be 100% honest, about all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we were to talk about like really, really, really hard subjects, like I don't know, some of the topics that you were talking about, Kendall, and like even darker subjects, like I wouldn't be comfortable talking about that, like if it was true in a sense.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
then they might get worried about me, and then I don't know, police show up like a
Yeah.
few minutes later or something, and it's just like I mean, it is a big deal, but like you don't have to turn it into a bigger deal than it already is.
Yeah. I know me, like personally, just like spent a lot of time talking with my mom about like boundaries and stuff like that, and like what I am comfortable telling her and like what I'm not comfortable telling her. Obviously, she's not a perfect person. Like, she has to learn, but I love her anyways. But I actually wanted to talk about like, I don't want to get too dark, but these are things we have to talk about. I wanted to talk about like mental health a little bit, and um, if we're not comfortable with that, I was gonna, go first and share some things about myself, then you guys could jump in, because I don't want you to be like I don't want to just throw something at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, would you guys like that, or do you want a question?
you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So, so I, for a really long time, I didn't necessarily have, the best mental health because I did go to like a private Catholic school and it was not diverse. It was on a very different side of the political spectrum than I was on, and I was like, I am not a bad kid by any means, but like I would end up in the principal's office like every day because I just would not agree with what they were saying. You know what I mean? And so because of that, like my mental health got really, really bad. And, at the time, my parents didn't really believe in therapy and they didn't like believe in medication and they didn't really believe in that stuff. So, it took me like 4 years to get them open to the idea of therapy and to the idea that like, it's not necessarily their fault that I don't want, I feel like it was like they felt like I was blaming them. You know what I mean? And, I just want to ask, like, how would you suggest parents react? And, you know, obviously they shouldn't be defensive, but like, what is your ideal situation, like how they would act and how they would support you and like trying to figure out, a balance between what they think is best and what you actually need and like trying to find a midpoint between those two things. I know, I'm sorry, that's such a hard question.
Honestly, no midpoint in a sense. Because I
Yeah.
feel like if it's gonna be a midpoint, like most of the time the adults are gonna want to get their way, and like most definitely they kind of do in a sense. So like, if anything, also it's not like your mental health. Like if we're talking about like adults, you don't have the same mental health as your children. Just because you don't have depression, suicide, whatever, doesn't mean that your child doesn't have it as well.
Yeah.
And it's just like it it just like, ooh, I don't know.
Oh yeah, it sucks.
I'll
Nico.
I'll I'll say definitely they have to be open to therapy. I think it's like there should never you get a therapist, maybe they don't work out, try another one, whatever, but you can't it can't be not an option, right? Because it might not be for some kids, but I think that's just definitely something to try. As well as like medication, like you can't completely shut those things out as just as like a symptom.
Yeah, listen to the kid. The kid knows better than you.
Yeah.
Period.
I also think like wait, oh my God, I forgot what I was gonna say. Okay, we can move on to the next question then. Um also I just wanted to say that like I appreciate you guys being so open and honest and stuff like that. And I also want to say that like therapy, like I feel like it's a lot of people that I know, they're like, I didn't really think about it as like an option until like my parents suggested it. I think that's so important because a lot of kids are scared to take like that initiative of like going into therapy because like how awkward is that asking your parents for therapy? I feel like even if your kid seems absolutely totally fine, like Maybe they are, but therapy is good for everyone. Therapy is not a thing for, crazy people. It's a thing for
All parents should
functioning
offer it.
humans. Exactly. It's a
All
thing for
parents should offer
Yeah.
functioning humans in
it, no matter
society.
what. Just offer
And
it
also
once.
parents should consider therapy for themselves as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
like everyone basically needs therapy unless they're like, I don't need therapy. Like if someone offers it to you and you're like, no, I don't want therapy, they don't need therapy.
yeah. Have your
Like,
parents
sure.
have your parents talked about like a stigma? Like, do they believe, are they like not embarrassed, but do they like down talk it?
What, like mental health in a
Like
sense?
therapy, like needing therapy. Because I know my parents certainly did. Like they
No, they didn't, thankfully. But it's like they, because they've been in therapy, like, I don't know, since they were like around our ages ish.
that's really
Like,
good.
I mean, yeah, that's good. But then again, it's like since they've been so used to getting therapy, like they think that I'm really gonna need therapy. But it's like, sure, I have a therapist, everything is doing fine, I'm good. I mean, you know, but like, I don't know. Let's just say that my mental health isn't the best and I don't want a therapist, then I don't need a therapist. I could be having the worst mental health possibly, and I still, if I didn't want a therapist, I would say that I didn't want a therapist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my parents definitely never talked down on therapy. Um, they've always thought of it as, I mean, my mom is a therapist, so of course they think it's great.
Say,
Yeah.
mom, my mom's also a therapist.
Everyone's mom is a therapist.
But it's like my mom specifically, she's like, you need therapy, but that's not always the case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to force it.
Yeah.
I think also since like I went through a little bit, I don't know what you call it, like a mental health crisis, I guess. I think ever since then my
Mental
parents,
breakdown.
yes, for a long time I think my parents they have been like really scared that I'm gonna end up like back in that place. But I feel like that low point, like that's obviously not a common like way for me to be. Like that's not who I am. So I feel like they're so incredibly scared that like if I'm sad or if I'm crying, that like I need to go to the hospital, or I'm going to do something to myself. And I think that is the most tiring thing for me because I am such a happy person and I love my life now. And I think that's so hard for them to comprehend that like that depression didn't just happen like that. Like it happened after years and years and years of me being like a horrible environment. So, like I was just wondering if you guys had like the same issues of your parents thinking that like
I mean, I had like a mental breakdown like 3 times within 15 minutes. Like, I think like a few months ago, and it was like my first ever one in a sense. And it was like, I don't know, it didn't really like happen for me, like in a sense. Like, no one really was there to comfort me ish. But then, like, after I got out of that like mental breakdown in a sense, like whenever I'm feeling, because it's hard for me to like say, oh, I'm feeling sad, oh, I'm feeling like I have hard time like understanding and expressing my feelings.
Yeah.
So when people say, you know, because when I was younger, my mom was always like hell bent on whenever I'm like recognized that I felt sad, she was like, where on the spectrum of sadness are you? And then just like give me a mood chart and be like, there's sad, there's um other words for sadness in there, and it's like, all right, this is the level of energy and the level of like depression ish. I'm like, where do you fall? And it's like, no.
yeah, identifying your emotions is like I feel like if you know exactly what you're feeling, I honestly I've never met you before because I don't know a single person like that. Because that's just, like that's such a hard thing to identify. I think when my parents they're like, "What are you upset about?" I'm like, "I don't know." They're like, "Why are you upset?" You know, I don't really know. I know what you did. I know like what you did and why I'm upset, but like I don't know like what I'm feeling, but or like why it's like such a complicated thing. And I think that's them understanding that has come with a lot of long conversations. Oh, wait, actually, that leads me back to my actually I'm gonna skip it. I'm gonna go to this one. Long conversations. Like I feel like so many people do not have long discussions with their parents. And I feel like that's just so fundamental to understanding your child and like genuinely knowing them as a person. You can know your child, but you actually have to understand their personality and their views in order to actually have like an actual friendship relationship. And I also think a lot of people are like, I am not my child's friend. You really should be. I'm not saying you let them curse you out or be rude to you, but you really should be able to laugh with your kid. You should be able to hang out alone with your kid. You should be able to sit in silence. Like I think me personally, I'm so grateful that like I'm never embarrassed or am feeling awkward around my parents because I think we've sat with each other long enough to just like I know you're my mom, but you're also like a person I'm living with that I respect and actually like I like your personality. And I'm really grateful to have that relationship now with my mom because we didn't always, you know. And I just wanted to ask like how do you suggest like I don't want to keep framing the questions around how parents should. I kind of want to ask you guys, like, how do you want your relationship with your parents to grow and how and then like do you wish like you had longer conversations or knew your parents better or had your parents know you better?
I mean, I think like the long conversations, like I try like they're so important again, like that you have to like try and initiate them, or if your parents initiate them, go with them. And
Especially hard conversations.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Long
the embarrassing,
conversations.
awkward ones.
And but even the not even the simple ones, like just any in-depth conversation, you'll just go down like a rabbit hole of conversation and go to so many places. And so like, try and get into those. It doesn't have to be often, but you do have to do it. I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, but then again, you always have like those cringy moments sometimes. Like, I remember talking about like science or something, and like my parents didn't remember what the elements were, and I was like, huh? Kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
they have
then,
difference.
and then it's also like cringy things like when they do things that kind of like tick me off in a sense or like bug me that are like please don't do that, like when they're referencing the dab, which is like so outdated right now. I'm just like please no.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just
Or
gotta.
when they find like a trend on Facebook and they're like, you can't do this
Oh.
trend. You can't do the trend where they're running on train tracks and they're trying to run faster than the train and I'm not gonna do that. Like I feel like there's such a disconnect between what parents think kids are doing and like what they're actually doing. Like I know especially like I don't know where everyone is from actually. I forgot. But I know like where I live, there's like a lot of like drug usage, like heavy drug usage and homelessness, like as around where I live in the downtown area. And like there's a lot of like obviously there's like a fentanyl epidemic going on where like I live. And I think, obviously I'm not that type of kid, but I think even though my parents know that, like they're just so scared of me of them like losing their child that I feel like they're sort of irrationally scared. Like
Yeah.
like I know I have this story. So, you know, me and Nico have known each other for quite a long time, and I remember being at his house and his mom gave me a Claritin, and I had dropped it on the floor. And no hate to his dad, because I love his dad, but he thought it was like an opioid. He thought like the Claritin was opioid, and he like got really, really, really free. I mean, as any
Yeah,
parent would.
he picked it up and he was like, it was white and it said like a certain number, like
Or,
150
yeah.
pill. And he looked up like white 150 pill, right? Because he's just curious. He's just curious. And the first thing that came up was like
Oxycontin.
Oxycontin. And so he just freaked
He
out. And
texted my mom and my dad,
yeah, that's like a good example of like of like
and
of
he
like a
was like,
parent
I
overreacting.
don't know. And he was actually talking to me about it. He was like, when I looked it up, I thought my whole world had been flipped upside down. And like he was like,
Yeah.
these kids that I thought I knew and loved, they weren't. They were on drugs. They were on
Yeah,
opiates.
that's like irrationally like scary.
And that is the
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And it's like, even though he literally knew Nico since he was born, and he's known me for a very long time, that was still like a possibility to him. That was still like, because if you were to ask me, is Nico on opioids? I would say, no, he's not. Because I just know that's not the type of person he is. But I think parents have that implanted
Yeah.
irrational fear of the worst thing possible ever happening.
I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
not even like people, like adults in a sense, because when where I used to live, there were like a whole bunch of like drug addicts on my exact street. Like there were two like hospitals that like had people who had like really really bad mental illnesses, and they would just like let them walk around the street, which is kind of weird in a sense. And it was like weird in a sense because like there were drug people like doing drugs like right in front of my house in a sense. And then like I just kind of like grew up installed with the fear, like me and like my family, like that, oh, someone's gonna kidnap me, so I can't walk alone. I can't walk at dark, like when it's dark. Um, never accept candy from a stranger. Don't like take anything from a stranger really, except like if they're a nurse or a doctor or something like that, like something that you actually know.
Yeah. I think like especially where I live, it's like I think my father especially he worries about me because I'm always gonna be his little girl to him. But like I do experience like a lot of harassment when I am downtown, but like I am the certain person like I'm not going to I think that's like a distinct difference between me and my parents. Like I don't think homelessness should be illegal, and I don't hate people because like they're homeless, and I'm not afraid of them become because they're homeless. I think more for me personally, it's like a gendered issue. Like I get a lot of catcalling from men, homeless or not. And I think I don't know, I think it always has deeply frustrated me because they'll be like, the homeless people downtown. No, the men downtown. And I think it's hard for my father to understand because,
Yeah.
he's in a house with three women. Even despite that, when I talk about misogyny with him, when I talk about sexism, when I talk about, all these things that inherently affect me, he has that defensiveness that all men will have when you talk about what it's like to be a woman. And
Yeah.
how absolutely terrifying it is sometimes to be a girl and to be a girl that is in the world that we're in and I
Yeah.
don't know it and I feel like especially my father because he's a lovely man, a sweet man, but he is also very like traditional, and I feel
Yeah.
like he truly cannot empathize with like the disrespect that I deal with
Yeah.
on a
Same.
constant basis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Like
it's like opposite gendered parent and then kid, like it's important that they can like be able to talk about the gender issues that they
yeah.
don't exactly relate to because like mother and son and then like father and daughter, like they might not connect the same as a dad and son and a mom and daughter, so they definitely like opposite gendered kids and parents. They have
Yeah.
to
It's
talk.
also like especially hard like with trans kids because example A, and like regular parents, like even like walking home and like just wearing like normal clothes, like I don't get catcalled thankfully, but like I do get harassed, and it's like not even like with like assigned male at birth, but it's also like with females as well. Like I get stared at a bunch. And I'm like, then again, like the school that I go to is like an art school, so like
Oh,
everyone's
that's so
there
amazing.
like weird. So I remember just like wearing a ball gown once because like where I
That's
live, like there's
hilarious.
an intersection and it's pink ball gown. And I was just like walking home, and the amount of stares that like I got like a bunch, and then well, a bunch of people who like aren't even from my school but are around the same age as me, like I know from my old school. Like sometimes like I see them and they walk past me and like they'll just stare at me. Like one of them even made like a really rude comment in a sense. Well, not like rude-ish, but it's more like a rude gendered comment in a sense to me, and it's just like I don't know. I
Do
feel like most
your
people.
parents like reassure you?
I
Or do you
mean,
talk to your parents about them?
no, not really. But it's also like if I was to talk about like trans stuff to my parents, like it they don't really understand.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I feel like it goes with really any like opposite gendered parent in a sense, or
I
like any
understand.
you get to be talking about sexuality or anything like that, and just saying, "Oh," or like blah 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 blah, like or "Oh, I am trans." Like they don't understand really what you're going through because they just think, "Oh, you're trans, that's it." But it's like, no, there's so much more that goes into being trans
Mm.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
I think I'm particularly lucky in that, well, not lucky, but like lucky that like I like in all every single one of my classes, like I am the only Black person. And, I feel blessed because like both of my parents are Black and they're able to like help me with that. But I think because they've lived for so long, they're kind of desensitized to like it's not just racism, like it is, but like my feelings are also hurt. Like it's just like I feel like they forget that I've only been on this planet for 16 years and I haven't gone through half the things that they've gone through. So when I go home and I'm like, I was walking with Nico one time and I got called the N-word and it was just like absolutely jarring. And I went home and I remember telling my mom and she was like, that's what people are gonna do. And I was just like, and like, of course she wasn't like saying it was okay, but it was just like, okay, well, do you not understand why I'm like freaking out right now? Because like is that not crazy? Is that not the most horrendous thing you've ever heard? And I think like they're so desensitized to like the patterns of life that when something that seems minuscule to you happens, I mean minuscule to them happens, but it's a big deal. You know what
Yeah, and especially people like calling each other like slurs and stuff, and then also like curses. It's like, sure, like even people my age like say like, like the N word, and then they also say the T word, they say the F word and all that. And like even if like they are it, it's just like it I don't know, it's not like a good thing to say in a sense. And like,
It's very
I could be calling someone the F word and I'm like, or no, I mean like the F slur, and like I am that, so I could say it in a sense, but it's not like okay because like it
Yeah.
still will
Especially if you
harm
don't know
people
them.
and like
they're
hurt
very
people.
heavy words, right? And like
Yes.
parents need to remember how like heavy they are.
Yeah, and just like saying them randomly, like even to meet up with people, I'll hear like black people calling the N word, and it's just like even like black people calling like white people the N word in my school. It's just like that's not okay
Mm.
in a sense. Like not trying to say like you can't reclaim that word in a sense, but it's just like it has like a really deep meaning.
Yeah.
And you know, like the amount of harassment that people have gotten who have those slurs have it in them.
Yeah. 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 Off of that, like I haven't personally ever been bullied. Like I haven't been like
Lucky.
shoved. I haven't been like shoved against a locker
Oh yeah, I've been
well like
verbally
I feel like
abused.
there's such a different like bullying is different now. Like bullying, it's like not like give me your lunch money.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
like
parents think that we don't get bullied, but we it's just a different form, and they have their notion
yeah.
of what bullying is.
it's
Like
like
Um,
my
being
friend.
friends with people that absolutely hate you but refuse to admit it, and they're just
Yeah,
so mean to you, and
and
they're
like
like, it's just a joke.
yeah, and one of my friends, this is like not friends in a sense, but like back in my old school, I mean the school that I am in, my bad. Um, someone was basically like I was telling someone that I was bullied, and she's like, if they are like because of my gender and my like sexual identity, and they were like, oh, if you aren't getting like beaten up every single day, getting pushed against the locker, it's not bullying. But it's like calling me by my name, saying my name weirdly, always looking me whenever, because I used to be in band, and whenever like
Me too.
my group, because I was in the flute section, we love flute.
Yes.
We say flute, but every time that like the flute section was like doing a solo or something, they were always like saying my name weirdly, and it's like, or like they were like, yeah, Aster, and it's just like that's bullying in a sense.
Still bullying,
And then
yeah.
the fact that like there are, this is what really annoys me. When straight men act gay. You're not
Yes.
gay.
Yes. Yes.
Don't
Yes.
be gay if you're not gay. Like
Yeah, and it's
there's
like it's
like
a little joke to them.
yeah, and then so many guys. Like I have a guy moaning in my math class and like literally making whimpering sounds, and it's like, you're not gay. Stop. We don't want to hear that. And like
Also
I,
just like weird sexual harassment.
yes. And I heard
And
like so many people just like making jokes, like especially in my old school, about them being gay and like giving people back shots and whatnot. And it's just like, stop, please stop.
yeah.
I have an asexual friend that's making jokes about that kind of stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
how does that work?
Yeah. It can, yeah. I think like trying to explain to your parents like also because they grew up in a different time
Yeah,
where people could be so mean to each other that like they don't understand that they can't say certain things. Like I remember I was like crying to my dad because like I forgot. I was just kind of upset at him and I was tired and I started crying at something I wouldn't usually crying at. I wouldn't usually be crying at. And he was like, I know it literally sounds like something so cliche, but he was like, you're being hysterical. Like something like that, for example. It's just like I feel like a lot of parents don't understand that your kids are living in a different world
yeah.
and you can't
Another
say stuff like that.
another thing that also ticks me off is I used in my old school I had a guidance counselor, and I was getting bullied because of my sexual identity and my like gender, and the dude basically was like, because this is like a straight male, and this guy was like, oh, just talk to the person, I'll be there to supervise, it'll all be fine. No, it's not. I have the same bus stop as her. What makes you think that it's all gonna be fine when there's no one there to watch? And then
Yeah,
it's also like, I'm gonna get picked on more if that happens.
yeah. I also don't know if this is a relatable topic at all, but um I do have like diagnosed autism and I think for a long time I did know. And I mean, I think for a very long time I wasn't like the best in social situations. Like I'm still not, to be honest. And I think like it made a lot of sense when I was diagnosed. And like I feel like my parents haven't necessarily, I feel like the people around me haven't necessarily shifted their understanding of me in that way. And like it's not like I feel like it's such a hard feeling to explain. It's like people will know that your brain works a little bit differently,
Differently.
but they
Yeah.
won't try to understand your actions
Yes,
because of that.
definitely.
How do
And
your parents like respond to the diagnosis?
well, my mom, she still doesn't talk about it. She she like she just won't like she just we just don't talk about it. Honestly,
Mhm.
and sometimes I low key forget
Yeah,
because
for
like we just don't talk about it. And I guess it's just so incredibly disheartening for people around me to not try to understand how, or because maybe it's not severe as other people. I think sometimes I feel a little invalidated or misunderstood because I feel like people aren't working to try to understand
mm.
how I am. And I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, like we know that I'm somewhere that's like neurodivergency. Like we know that at least. Like I haven't been diagnosed because like diagnosing is like so hard. Because like
Yeah.
the schools are like, oh, if it isn't like bothering your school, like if you aren't getting good grades, then it doesn't matter. Then you can't be diagnosed in school. It's just like,
Yeah.
um, okay. I don't know how to count. I don't know how to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, and I need a calculator to do so. And
Yeah.
then it's also that like my mother who has ADHD basically like talk well like is like you probably have ADHD, and then it's also like that's not how it works. You're not sure she's like an actual therapist, but it's also like you're my mother that kind of doesn't really count for diagnoses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I hate to interrupt this and
Are
chop
we
this
going over
because
time?
no, you guys are perfect. So perfect. And I just want to say truly, and I said this in the beginning, but this is like a gift that I'm not sure all of you fully understand how valuable the gift of sort of sharing your hearts and your openness and what's on your mind and how you think about all of these topics that you guys hit so, Kendall, amazing, amazing. You hit so much, and all of you. It was just such a gift, and we thank you for trusting us. And we were so glad to meet you last week when we did, for trusting us to hold space where we could, yeah, just hold the space and learn and listen from your wisdom. We are all parents, those of us in the Bright Family Engagement team, and I know I learned so much. And there's things in there that I'm like, would never have even thought of that I'm going to be thinking about. So I thank you so deeply personally for all of that so much. We have one just last question for you that I'm going to pass it over, Lakeisha, to you, right? Unless anyone else wants to, Victor, Julie, Lakeisha, anyone else want to say anything before we do our final question?
It was just spectacular. Thank you so much for being so honest and just sharing yourselves. It really meant a lot to me, and I'm sure it meant a lot to parents that will be watching this. Just thank you.
Big time. And Lakeisha, can you hear? Or I don't know if you.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
That's good.
I don't know what was going on. It was fantastic. It was like you answered a lot of the questions that we had. So I just want to say thank you, like Megan said, for just trusting us and being able to tell your experiences, which is very important because we don't know what happens on the other side or what you guys are going through. So this is very helpful to me, who has a kid with, a diagnosis and stuff like that. So, yeah. Did you want me to go ahead and ask the last question, or did
Yeah,
anybody else?
sounds good.
Janaea, you're a little quiet. You have any questions or anything to add?
No, I don't. I just love listening to people talk. I was just so stupid.
That's very valid.
Okay, okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so my last question, our only question we have tonight, to all you guys is if you could give all parents one piece of advice on how best to support their kids who are going through hard times, what would it be?
I
I
go
feel like
going
you
first.
shared a million things, a million, but like if you had to like say what's the
One
most
little, one little
important one?
snippet.
Okay.
Yeah, one most important.
If I had to say one thing to like not even parents, but like adults in a sense, like when dealing like with children in specifically, like give them time to like express their like opinions with like no hate and judgment. Because, you know, if you're giving like children like really anyone in general judgment, like they're not gonna want to talk to you like really about anything hard. Like the most difficult question that you're probably gonna get is like, how's the weather or something like that. So yeah.
I would say, not every single kid is the same, but for me, I really, really love like physical contact with my mother, like when I'm sad or like it seems like such a baby thing, but like laying with her, like I don't know, it's like the sweetest thing and it makes me just feel like so loved. And not every kid is like that. And so like if your kid does consent to that, obviously, that's such, no one's ever too old to cuddle, honestly.
Thank you. Janaea, did you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I would say my biggest piece of advice would be like to listen to truly understand. I know we touched a little bit earlier about like having long conversations, but I feel like as a parent, if when you're having these conversations, you're listening but not truly understanding, it's not gonna get as far as it could get. So just listen to understand and to not take everything like as a personal attack.
I would say one piece of advice, like all parents, is just like to just be there in whatever form your kid needs, but just be there, right? Like in like whatever way it might be, like listening or just being present at all, and just it's different for everyone, but just not being present would be like the worst thing a parent could do.
Beautiful.
Could we also have the link to like the thing itself?
Yes.
Like
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like I learned a lot tonight, and I kind of wish this would have happened like 26 years ago when I started my parenting gig, but here we are, and I'm still learning, it turns out. First of all, you guys are so well spoken, and I feel like maybe you need to write a book together or do a podcast. I don't know what it's going to be, but
That would be nice.
wouldn't that be cool?
You should do that.
Here's what I loved. Parents, this is the truth. I'm going to validate what you said. Parents are irrationally scared. I'm still scared, and my kids don't live in my home anymore. So, you know what we're dealing with. But I just kind of wanted to recap a few things about some really key things that I heard you guys say. And number one was that we need to be, as parents, a little more open-minded and listen to understand, not listen to give our point and answer, like respond, right? So I feel like that's a really huge one. I heard you guys saying that we need to listen without judgment. And that would have saved me a lot of hard times early on. I really loved hearing too, like your ideas around boundary setting and having that discussion with your parents. I feel like you have so much access to social media that obviously we didn't when we were younger. And the ability to have some conversations like that with your parents, that's amazing. And I mean, we know this, you're growing up in a different world than we did. And so much access to different things, and then just giving you time to communicate what you're feeling and doing it again without judgment. And I just want to follow up with what Janaea said. I'm so glad to hear you there. But you really mentioned not taking things as a personal attack when sometimes you might say some hard things to us. And I think those are all good things for us to remember. I just feel like it was such a great evening, you guys, and what you have to say is powerful. And we do as parents want to hear what you have to say and as adults. And in my free time, I'm also a teacher, and you're reminding me some things that I need to bring back into the classroom as well. So thank you for that. You did a great job. I do want to remind all our parents out there that every month, on the first Tuesday of the month, we have a parent learning series like tonight with different topics. We have our second Tuesday of the month is a caregiver conversation night where we have at 7 p.m. We do the second Tuesday is for parents of elementary students. The third Tuesday is for caregiver conversations for parents of middle and high school students. And our fourth Tuesday is for our BIPOC affinity group for parents of BIPOC students. And so we just want to invite you to check those things out. And I forget what next month's learning series is. Does anyone know?
We'll put the link in the YouTube live.
Yeah, link in the bio. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night to
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
You're superstars.
Bye.
Bye. Alex, are you still?
So thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night
Thank
to
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all. You're superstars.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, I can't